Hello friends, welcome to LeggLife and welcome to the last video of 2022.
Yep.
When we were thinking about how in the world do we end the year, I thought back to a question that we've received so many times. Like a lot. You guys have asked all sorts of questions about Sherri's reading this year. You guys have asked, Sherri, what's your favorite book? Sherri, what are you currently reading? Sherri, how many books have you read in December? Sherri, when are you starting a book club? Sherri, when are you, book questions basically constantly. Lots
of book questions.
And so we thought, you know what? Rather than doing like a LeggLife yearly recap, let's give the people what they want. It's more Sherri book stuff. So This is going to be Sherri's 2022 book year in review.
We came up with a bunch of different categories, kind of answering questions that you guys have asked, and then also just some things that we thought were interesting.
Yeah, so basically my role in this video is just moderator.
Correct.
I have nothing to add. I have no input. I'm going to ask you the questions.
Okay.
Okay? Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. First of all, your reading goal going into 2022, we've talked about this before, was how many books for this year?
100.
Okay. We are filming this on December 28th. Yes. So you still have a few days left in the year.
Yep.
How many books as of today have you read? Have you finished?
I have completed 115.
Okay.
I will complete at least one more.
Okay, so
because I'm pretty close to finishing one more. I can easily finish it in 3 days.
Okay, so 116 is probably what the number will be.
Probably.
And so you use Goodreads.
Yes.
And we will link to Sherri's Goodreads down below. Mm-hmm. And it gives you information on the books that you've read this year.
Yes.
There are some things that I thought were fascinating.
Yeah.
Total pages that you read this year. 32,000.
I was going to answer, but yes.
381. Did you remember that you knew that number?
In my noggin.
Really? You knew 32,381?
Yes.
Why am I here, you guys?
Well, because you're really pretty.
Okay.
So and this is not actually an accurate page count because it hasn't counted like the pages that I have read in current books.
Oh.
It's only in books that I've completed. And I did have a bunch of the books that, so the way the Goodreads works, you can kind of choose which version of the book that you're reading, and sometimes they have page counts and sometimes they don't. And so true. Some of the books that I read, there wasn't a version of it that had like a page count, and so it just said I read it, but it didn't actually have pages read.
So you would definitely read more than the 32,381 pages.
Probably, yes.
The longest book you read this year was?
The War Storm?
It was War Storm, and 662 pages.
Yeah.
Which is basically what I read in about a decade. So just for comparison, that book is about what I read in a decade. The average length of book you read?
281.
281 pages.
Right? Yeah.
Which is interesting because I was like, okay, what is that? Like, give me an idea, because again, I don't read a lot. And so I went and looked at the Agatha Christie book that I'm currently reading, and it's longer than the book I'm currently reading. Your average book is longer than the book that I'm so proud of myself for reading. Moving on. Now some questions about specific books.
Okay.
And these are questions that I came up with that I think people would want to know.
Yeah.
Best new standalone books. When I say standalone book, you read a lot of book series.
I do.
But this is a brand new, individual, by itself book that you read this year. What was the best one?
So we did actually go through these before. I forget what I put. Did I put Dead Romantics?
You put Dead Romantics.
Okay. Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston was adorable. So I have read several of her books before. She's written a bunch of YA kind of stuff, and I adore her books. And this was her first adult book. And it was still just a sweet romance, but it was with adult characters instead of teenagers, really.
Okay.
But it was so cute. It was so good. I loved it.
A book that you would reread?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the Dead Romantics, best new standalone book.
Yes.
Now, let's get into series. Because series, would you say that series are what you read most?
Yes, probably, because I really like to dive into characters and like see character development, which is hard to do in like a 300-page book.
So out of the 115 books you've already completed, would you say that half of those are series?
Oh, probably more than half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So best new series that you read for the first time this year, and you could not come up with one, you had to have two.
I had to have two.
Okay, what are they?
The Inheritance Games.
Okay.
And Fable.
What? Tell me. I know nothing about either of these.
Okay, so The Inheritance Games is a book that a bunch of you guys were like, you have to read this book. And I was like, okay. So I finally read the whole series this year. And I don't remember how long it's been since I have just like been so stuck in a book.
Oh.
I had to not let myself read it before bed.
Oh, I remember the series. Because we talked about this a lot of nights.
It kept me awake because my brain was just like trying to figure everything out and like how all the strings attach and like, oh, it was such a good series.
How many books in the series?
3.
Okay.
Currently. She is doing like an offshoot series with like the same characters, but kind of a new, yeah.
So that's Inheritance Games. Would you say Inheritance Games is like your number 1 best new series and then Fable is number 2?
Probably, but they're pretty close.
So what's Fable?
So Fable, I had not actually heard of this until this year, and I don't remember when it came out, but I don't think it's very old. But it's a YA book about a girl named Fable. And it's a duology, but then there's an offshoot about her father as well, called Saint. And she's raised on a ship, and it doesn't say like when the time frame is, but you kind of know it's like back sometime.
Yeah.
Prior to technology and that kind of stuff.
It's not now.
It's not now.
Yeah.
But she's raised on a ship, and that's kind of her whole life, and it's the whole world that was built for these 2 books was fascinating. So I really like got sucked into those 2, and I wish that there was more. I was bummed that there's only 2.
Is there rumors of more, or it's done?
I don't know. I mean, because Saint just came out, so I don't know if the author's going to be doing like more kind of offshoots of like other characters, which I would be fascinated to read. I really want to read Saint because it's kind of more of like his backstory.
Yeah.
And I would really like her love interest in the book is named West, and I would like his more of his backstory. So. Okay,
there we go. So there's the answers to those. Next question. What book from this year do you think should be on everyone's bookshelf? So this is like, and this is not necessarily the book you enjoyed the most, but this is the book, like for me, it would be The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse.
Right.
Right? That would be my book that I think should be on everybody's bookshelf.
Yeah.
Forever. What is your book? And we have talked about this book before.
We have talked about this book, and it doesn't actually show up on my completed reads because I have not completed it. But All Along You Were Blooming by Morgan Harper Nichols. My sister got this for me for my birthday, and it's the kind of book, look, she even put a little, she's so cute. It's the kind of book that I'm only halfway through, because it's like, it's different poems, and I'll read like 1 or 2, and then I have to like process what I just read. And so it's not just like a sit down and read the entire book, because they are poems, and the poems are all like 1 or 2 pages, and so it's taken me longer to read than like a normal book this size would, because I can read like 2 at a time. And I need to like think about what I just read. You said, and I think we said this in a previous vlog, you said that when you read this book, it feels like she was in our life with everything that's gone on the last 2 years. Yes, I feel like she had a window into our house, which is a little bit creepy, but I feel like she was really just like in, or like looking in on everything that's been happening in our life in the last 2 years, and with all of my health stuff, and really with like a lot of the loss, and I just feel like so many of these poems were just written for me. So, so then why do you think this is a book that should be on everybody's bookshelf? Honestly, because of the reaction that you have had to some of them. And that's why I don't feel like it was just necessarily just for me. I feel like it can really be for anybody, and I just feel like not every poem speaks to me as hard as some of the others, but I love the way that she writes, and it just feels like she kind of looks into your soul and knows what you need to hear.
The thing that I like about the book when I've read several of the poems with you is that, so I don't know, I think that to live in this world today is to experience trauma, right? I don't believe you can go through this life trauma-free. I just don't think it's possible, right? With all of the things that are going on, all the things that have happened, especially the last couple of years, we all have experienced this trauma.
Yeah.
And to me, if you have gone through hardships or loss or grief or trauma or brokenness or felt alone or sad or, you know what I mean? Like any of that, like if any of those boxes have ever been checked by you, there is something in here for you.
Yes.
And I think that to me is what, it gives a voice to something that sometimes feels lonely.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's beautiful, and she has like little illustrations that kind of go along with a lot of her poems, and so it's just I just think that everybody should have this and be able to read it and think about what it is you're reading.
It's one of those books that I think once you go through it, it will go on a bookshelf and will come out when you need it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's times of life where it's like, you know what? I need to go through that book again.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now moving on.
Yeah.
Favorite new authors. So these are authors that you had never read before 2022 that you discovered this year and you just are fangirling about.
Hardcore. I think there's 3.
There's 3 of them you gave me.
Jen DeLuca.
Yep.
She wrote the Well Met series that I ate up and adored, and the 4th one just came out this month, and I don't own it yet, but we're gonna need to remedy that.
Well, I do know that Santa gave you a Barnes & Noble gift card in your stocking.
That he did.
So maybe that can work.
And who else did I put on there?
You put on there Emily Henry. Yep.
So my sister recommended People We Meet on Vacation, and I had heard of it, and I was just like, okay, I'll read it. Like, my sister said it was really good. Ate it up and immediately went out and bought her other 2 books, and she has a 4th one coming out next year. And I just like the way that she writes her characters, and they're all standalone books. Like, none of them have anything to do with the others, but they're just heartwarming. And I love that the way that she writes her characters. Like, you just instantly know who they are.
And then the last one?
Allie Hazelwood.
Yep.
So she wrote, I'm losing it, Love on the Brain, and another one.
Okay.
The Love Hypothesis. And she has another one also coming out in 2023. So all 3 of these authors were ones that I'd never heard of or read until this year. And as soon as I read the first one, I immediately went out and bought everything that they have.
Which says a lot.
And I have read all of it.
Yeah.
I love them. So Allie Hazelwood writes a lot of STEM characters, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And so they're all very smart female characters in the STEM world, which is mostly male dominant. So very sassy characters too.
I love that.
And I love them.
So now moving on to the next question.
Yeah.
So those were new things you discovered.
Yeah.
But you don't only read new books each year. You also go back and read like favorites.
Reread. Yep.
So when you think of a series or a book that you reread this year that you really loved, that like really jumps out at you, what would that be?
I think I put the Defy series. The Defy series.
Again, why am I here?
Defy by Sarah B. Larson. So I have read these before, and I think that I found them at either the library book sale or at Tidal Wave or something, like all 3 of the books, and I was just like, yep, I want to read these again. And I did, and I was just like, oh, I remember why I loved this series. They're fantastic.
How many in the series? 3, you said?
3.
Okay.
Yep, there's Defy, Ignite, and Endure.
All right. thinking of 2023. So that's kind of looking back. That's your 2022 book year in review.
Yeah.
A successful year of reading?
Yeah.
A year that you continued like your love of reading and all that?
Yes.
It wasn't a setback, anything like that?
No, and I think, I don't know if you asked this, if one of the questions was like any disappointments or any books that I regretted reading or whatever. I don't think I had any of those this year.
That's
I feel
amazing.
like every year I have one or two that I'm just like, ugh, this did not live up to the hype. But I don't think I had any of those this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So looking forward to 2023, your reading goal for next year will be?
Probably 100. I'll just keep it at 100. I
That's
feel like the last several years I've hit around 100.
You're not going to push yourself and be like, you know what, 120. You know what, 350. 580. No?
I'm not going to do that. No.
Okay.
No, and for me, it's because I really want an attainable goal, and
Yeah.
I think in 2020 I read like 155, but it was 2020 and we were all stuck inside.
True.
But since then I haven't really gotten over 120, and so I don't think that, I feel like that would, like that kind of a goal would just be, I don't like not meeting goals.
Totally. So
I'd rather set it a little bit low to a goal that I'm 90% sure that I can hit.
I love that a little bit low is 100 books. Yeah, good for you for setting your goal a little bit low, Sherri. Really lower that bar. Any of you guys out there like me right now, and it's just like you need help picking your eyes up off the ground because they rolled out of your head.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. I do want to say, and I've said this before on lots of vlogs, your love for reading is one of my favorite things about you. And I have seen you get lost in books standing in line at the grocery store. I've seen you get lost in books while we're waiting for food to be delivered at a restaurant. I've seen you get lost like literally everywhere we go.
When I'm shopping for books, I'll start to read a book and just stand there and just read the book.
And that's true. And I'm gonna be like,
And you're
Sherri,
like,
are we buying this book or what are we doing? We're not going to read the whole thing in Barnes and Noble, right? Like the plan is to eventually take it with us. It's true. We've had that conversation.
Sorry.
And so I love, and that's one of the things that we've talked about a lot is I'll never say no to buying books because I know that it's something that you love so much.
Yeah, and I read the ones that we buy, so.
And speaking of buying books, the last question. Yeah. 2023 books that you're anticipating.
Yeah.
And you gave a few of them.
Yes.
Curious to know if you remember them.
Two of them are by some of the authors that I just talked about, Emily Henry and Allie Hazelwood. They
Yep.
each have new books coming out.
Emily Henry's book is called Happy Place, and Love Theoretically is Allie Hazelwood.
Yeah.
And then the last one is Holly Black.
Holly Black. Okay, yes. So I also, this year I read the Cruel Prince series, and she has kind of a spin-off series. So some of like the younger characters that were in the Cruel Prince series are now adults, and The Stolen Heir is about two of them. So it's kind of a continuation of the series.
Okay.
So I'm excited to read The Stolen Heir.
Just a few books that you're excited about.
Yeah.
I do have one more question that's about books that is not on this.
Oh, no.
And I know you don't love this. There's a book that you read this year, and it was the one that was really hard to read, set here in Alaska.
The Great Alone.
The Great Alone by?
Kristen Hanna.
Kristen Hanna. You had talked about how just kind of hard that was to read.
Yeah.
But you did really love the book.
Yes.
Have you read more of her stuff?
I have not yet. And so I'm putting her in the category with like John Green. In that I love her style of writing. I loved the book. But like with, The Fault in Our Stars or literally anything of his, I I read it and I'm just like, this is one of the best books ever. I don't think I can read it again. But because I'm weird, I want to own it. And so I own both of those books, The Fault in Our Stars and The Great Alone. And just very hard books to read, but so good and so well written that I don't know. It's part of the book collection that I think needs to always be on my shelf.
How much of that is, and I know we're off topic now, how much of that is, so much of your reading is like otherworldly. What I mean is like it's YA dystopian stuff, it's
like
fantasy stuff, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And The Fault in Our Stars and The Great Alone, from what you've told me about The Great Alone, I've read The Fault in Our Stars, those are kind of they hit really close to home with the hardness of life.
Yep.
And so it's like, I didn't escape reality. This drug me right back into the hardest parts of reality.
Yes.
Is that kind of what is so hard about those?
Yes, that's exactly why they're really hard to read.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore both of those books and everything I've read of John Green's, and I'm sure that I will adore everything else that I read of Kristen Hanna's. I do own several of her other books. I just haven't gotten myself up to read them yet.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like all of them are going to be like that. Like they're just going to plunge me right into the hardest parts of life.
Yeah.
So
you also have to go into a book with the mindset that that's the journey you're about to take.
Yes, which I did not actually realize with The Great Alone.
Oh, surprise.
Until I was in it, and I was just like, oh.
Gosh.
Yeah. I mean, so good. And I do feel like everybody should read her stuff. Everybody should read John Green. But very... gets you right in the feels.
All right. I have one more question.
Okay.
Last question. You have been a huge encouragement to me in my journey to like discover reading.
Okay.
Right? Like with all my Agatha Christie books I'm trying to like get through, and just like my desire to like reading.
Yeah.
If there was a book or a series that you would have me read in 2023 that you think would help my love for reading, and it doesn't have to be new, it could be old AF, what would it be?
The Unwind series.
The one for Christmas? The one I got you for Christmas?
Yes. So this is a series that he got me for Christmas, and I have read before, and I loved them, and they're kind of they full-on YA dystopian.
Which I love.
Which you love. And they're very scientific, I guess. Like, it's a whole different spin on a dystopian America, and they're fascinating.
Oh.
And I think that you would really like them.
I did read Neil Shusterman, right?
Yep.
I did read one of his books, I think Dry is the one that I read, about the taps, where it's like...
Yes.
They turn on the taps and there's no water.
Right.
And I love that stuff. I liked his writing style.
Yep.
Okay.
He's an intriguing author. He doesn't make boring characters. So.
Well, I'll pray about it. But you guys, there we go. That is Sherri's 2022 book year in review.
Yeah.
Want to know in the comments below, best book you read this year?
Yeah.
Is there a book that you love or that you think Sherri would love?
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments below. Always love hearing book recommendations from you guys. Also down below, I will link to Sherri's Goodreads.
Yeah.
If you want to follow her. And Sherri's Bookshelf, which is your Bookstagram.
Yes, it is.
Where you post different photos and stuff.
Yep. Of books that I'm reading, or random book quotes or whatever.
One of these years, I don't know how, it'll probably involve lots of little golden books. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to beat your number. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to read 300 little golden books.
Okay.
And I'm going to win.
Do it.
It's probably not going to happen. You guys, we love you so very much. Thanks for hanging out with us. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And we will see you sometime soon. We love you guys.